What would 12-year-old you never believe about adult you? That all of the things I said I'd always remember and never do as an adult, I've largely forgotten and probably do as an adult. 12-year me wanted to buy a boat instead of a house, and then I could just live wherever I want and not have a job because I wouldn't have rent. 12-year me was kind of a genius. You fish for your food. That I still laugh at the exact same things. Still listen to the same music too. We never got that growth spurt we were promised. Same. I'm in my 20s and people still tell me I'll get one day. Undefined. A friend of mine got it at 22. He was shorter than his brother, but ended up taller. That sometimes, when I'm not paying attention, my mom S word slipped right out of my mouth. Sometimes it happens, even when I'm paying attention. I'm too young to turn into her. My mother isn't always wrong. She's right about a lot of things, even if they didn't make sense when I was younger. Most subjective things though. No. That I too don't know what the peep I'm doing with my life. Lol, I think 12-year-old me knew more about what I was doing in life than I do. Ignorance is bliss, I'm told. That I'm in bed usually by 8:45 every night. To sleep. That I have a kid taller than me. I'm not tall or anything, just never pictured being shorter than my 13-year-old. I'm 5'7" and married someone who is 5'10" or taller. Our son is like 6'1" at 17 and daughter is 5'9" at 15. Probably makes sense considering my father-in-law is 6'4". Genetics are so cool. Same, I'm 5'6", my husband is 5'9", our two sons are 6'4". That I'm almost 40 and still don't have a stable full of horses. I just turned 40 and finally do have a horse of my own. It was well worth the wait, young me. For almost 9 years, I've worked literally 1 minute away from a huge water park and I've never gone there. I lived in New Zealand for 8 years, been to the studio and the film locations. Still haven't seen the movies. Undefined. Edit 2. My highest upvoted comment is about my ignorance. Grito. I traveled in Mexico, and when I told one of the guys who worked at a hostel I stayed at that I was from New Zealand, he was like, oh, they made that movie there. And I was like, yep, Lord of the Rings. And he looked confused and said no. The other one. Once we are warriors. There's no punk line beyond that. I just wanted to share that story. I live in a whole ass other country and speak another language now. That definitely won't come as a surprise. Where did you come from? Where did you go? I can dance. That I haven't gotten married. That's something I just assumed would happen, and yet here we are, and I'm still single. I think he'd also be surprised at how rough my teenage years were. I feel ya opus. Not only that I haven't gotten married, but that I have spent the last 13 years single. And that I failed out of college twice, and I'm only now doing well enough to finally get a bachelor's next year at 33. I didn't fail out, but I just stopped going a few times. Being in your early 30s getting the degree isn't that weird. That I own an ice cream shop. Undefined. As an ice cream shop owner, how much ice cream do you in fact still consume? Do you get tired of it after a while? Can one even get tired of ice cream? I'm not up, but my parents own an ice cream shop that I basically grew up in. So I think I'm qualified to answer this question, and yeah, you basically eat ice cream every day. I actually like exercise and physical activity. It's just PE class that sucked. School does a surprisingly good job of sucking every last bit of fun out of many subjects. PE focused on competitive team sports, horrible for non-competitive or less coordinated people. My school loved doing dance exercise. Every single year, without fail, we would have 1 or 2 terms of dancing. In grade 9, I got incredibly sick. My feet swelled up so much that I couldn't wear my school shoes. I was diagnosed with arthritis and given a letter from the doctor to excuse me from pen. It was one of those dance terms. She laughed at my letter because only old people get arthritis and then called me lazy. I tried really hard that term, but I still got a crappy grade because dancing when your feet are in excruciating pain is not very graceful. That I actually like bees now and want to pursue beekeeping someday. I used to hate all bugs no matter what, but with more research, I realized that bees aren't so bad. Still hate other bugs though. So bees are all the buzz, eh? Indeed they are. They're also the bee's knees. That the brother I hated would become my best friend undefined. Yes, took my nearly 20 years to connect with my brother. I'm still working on it with mine. It's hard when you relate so much to another person and yet you have vastly different personalities. Hey, you know that girl over there you think is really weird? You're going to marry her. You knew your wife when you were 12. Awesome. It's pretty sweet. I met my wife in 9th grade home economics. I dated her friend for a while. She blocked me on AIM for like 2 years because she was an awkward nerd that didn't get why a guy would want to just be friends with her. She loved Age of Empires, and so did I, and I wanted to play with her. We didn't have out in 11th grade, but started to in 12th, and she got busted about the blocking me. A few weeks later we started dating, and have been married for almost 11 years now. That I've heard a pilot scream "Mayday, Mayday" before ejecting. I'm an air traffic controller. Did they make it? Yes, they did. Hospital for a while, but he was back flying in a month or two. That he would become a scientist after all. Being a dirt flop or country kid seemed unsurmountable at the time. What kind of science? While Sheldon wouldn't approve, I became a geologist, lol. I'd still sit down for an all-night session of Dungeons and Dragons. I never played D&D, but I really want to try. I've been listening to a bit of the Adventure Zone podcast, and it sounds like a blast. Growing up, it was always the bottom of the barrel for nerdism. You could play or be into anything nerdy and get away with it, because at least it's not D&D. I think my friends and I would really dig it if they just got past the stereotype. The last time I talked about it some time ago, the idea got shot down. Maybe I'll give it another go the next time I go home, or try arranging it with them online over Roll20. The biggest problem is that I would likely have to be dungeon master for a group that knows nothing about it. I barely do. Don't worry. Those early sessions figuring stuff out are so fun. Just jump into it, create a story, and have fun. We never achieved that swan status. Still an ugly duckling. I read the Hans Christian Andersen story. It features many times of the ugly duckling saying "I'm so ugly, I should just die." It's not a good moral. A better moral is you may be an ugly duck, but that's because you are really a dog, and someone out there thinks you are one heck of a dog. Just gotta find that person. She has friends. Good, supportive, long-term friends. That I do math for a living. Peeping math. He'd have been so upset. Undefined. Edit 2. For more clarity, all I ever wanted to be was a musician. Even went to school for music. Still play pretty much every day. Just never made a living from it. So I went from rock and roll to profit and loss, as it were. 12-year-old me would have been mad, but 17-year-old me really got the hang of the stuff, so he wouldn't be surprised. I made it to 21. Same. Then I hit 25. And now I'm looking at 30. It's really weird to think that I didn't think I'd make it this far, but I somehow dragged myself through. That I'm overweight, and I became a suit. I became a suit. How often do you dry clean yourself? Is that a euphemism for masturbation? That I'm on my way to becoming a doctor. 12-year-old me would scream why. Rant about how doctors are the scariest beings ever, and how the hospital drives you nuts. 12-year-old me really wanted to be a pilot. That my father would die young. Both of his parents lived well into their 90s. He was athletic, non-smoker, not a risk taker. He also turned out to be the only one in his family to get cancer, a particularly deadly type. I'm sorry to hear about that. Cancer sucks. About the only thing I can say about cancer. Cancer sucks, simple and to the point. My penis never grew. At least it didn't shrink. Well, he didn't say that. That I found a girl that buys me Star Wars Lego at Christmas. Plot twist, it's still mom. That I would be a firefighter. Yeah, dude, you get to ride in the truck